This is Carl. He's 20 years old, living in a small apartment in New York. Most nights after class, he's out delivering pizzas on a beat-up scooter. 2 years of double shifts, tips, and skipped weekends finally added up to something. $10,000. Sitting in his savings account. Then there's Jimmy. 32, married, 10 years into a corporate job that's given him plenty of stress and not much else. His boss criticizes his work more than he praises it. But year after year, he's put money aside, $50,000. And then there's Daniel, 50 years old, a retired truck driver. Last year, he sold a small piece of land he'd owned for years, made a clean $25,000 on it. Daniel's sitting on $100,000, more money than he's ever had at once in his life. 3 completely different lives, 3 completely different bank accounts. Carl looks it up on his phone, lying on his bed after a delivery shift. Jimmy stays late at the office, searching quietly after everyone else has gone home. Daniel sits out on his back porch with his laptop. Same question on all 3 screens. How much does it actually cost to start this? Carl finds an old detailing van online, priced low enough that he can actually afford it. He calls the seller that same night. The next day, he drives out to see it in person. It's rougher than the photos. Dented side panel, faded paint, a check engine light that flickers on and off. But it runs, and it's within his budget. Carl decides that's enough. Jimmy finds 2 options online instead of 1. After work, he drives out to see the first one, then the second. He negotiates the price down on the better one and drives it home himself. Daniel isn't satisfied with anything he finds online, so he stops looking on his phone and starts driving. He visits 3 different dealerships over 2 days. On the third one, he finds exactly what he's picturing: 2 brand new vans. Carl doesn't rent a location. He can't afford one. And honestly, he doesn't need one. His whole business runs out of his trailer and his phone. He designs his own flyer on his phone. Nothing fancy, just his number and a price. He posts it in every local Facebook group he can find. Jimmy has a little more breathing room. He puts a small budget behind meta ads targeting his own neighborhood. He buys equipment a level above Carl's. A real water tank system, a generator, a proper polisher, and he hires one guy to help him get through launch week. Daniel doesn't plan on washing a single car himself. He's building this like a company from day one. He hires 2 experienced detailers who've done this kind of work for years. He pays a designer for a real logo and a proper brand. And he puts real money behind a launch campaign, local ads, a website. Carl's phone buzzes at 9 in the morning, his first booking. He drives out alone and sets everything up by himself. It's just him, a hose, and a car that needs to look brand new in under 2 hours. Across town, Jimmy's van shows up with his new logo freshly wrapped on the side. His helper's there too, so the job that took Carl 2 hours takes them under 1. Daniel doesn't show up to either job. He's at his laptop watching his 2 crews work from a distance. One van's parked outside a used car dealership he cold called that morning. The other's at a private home across the city. By evening, the numbers are in. Carl made $70, Jimmy made $140, Daniel made $380 across both crews. But Daniel already owes both of his guys a full day's wage, whether the phone rings tomorrow or not. By Thursday, Carl's booked 5 cars. He's proud of that. He's also completely wiped out. Still, no debt, no employees, nobody depending on him but himself. Jimmy makes a cold call to a used car dealership on a whim. To his surprise, someone actually picks up. They want 10 cars detailed every single week. Daniel's Wednesday schedule, on the other hand, is almost completely empty. 2 employees, standing around a parking lot, getting paid to wait. So Daniel picks up the phone himself and starts calling every dealership in the city. Carl gets his first bad review that same week. A customer says he missed a spot on the floor mats. He drives back that afternoon and fixes it for free, no argument. Jimmy quietly raises his price by $10. Not one customer complains. By Friday, Daniel lands his second dealership contract. And just like that, both his vans are booked solid for the following week. All three sit down to actually look at their numbers. Let's compare how all three businesses performed after their first month. Carl serviced 62 cars, Jimmy completed 91, and Daniel's two crews finished 148 vehicles. Next, let's look at the average ticket. Carl averaged $72 per car. Jimmy charged a much higher $135. Daniel averaged $110 per vehicle. That gives us gross revenue. Carl brought in $4,464. Jimmy generated $12,285. And Daniel led the group with $16,280 in total sales. But revenue is only half the picture. Now the expenses begin. For vehicle and fuel costs, Carl spent $420. Jimmy spent $900. Daniel, running two vans across the city, spent $1,800. Next are supplies like soap and equipment. Carl spent $380. Jimmy spent $1,100. Daniel invested $2,200 to keep both crews fully stocked. Then comes payroll. Carl worked completely alone, so he paid $0 in wages. Jimmy paid his helper $1,600. Daniel paid two experienced detailers a combined $8,400. Next is rent. Carl worked entirely from home, so his cost was $0. Jimmy also avoided rent by operating from his van. Daniel, however, rented business space, adding another $1,500 in monthly expenses. Now let's look at marketing. Carl spent only $100, mostly on simple local promotion. Jimmy invested $500 into online advertising. Daniel spent $900 on a much larger launch campaign. Finally, there's insurance. Carl paid $60. Jimmy paid $300. Daniel paid $500 to cover a larger operation. After subtracting every expense, we're left with what really matters: net profit. Carl kept $3,504. Jimmy finished the month with $7,885. And Daniel, despite generating the highest revenue, kept only $980 because so much of his money went into payroll, rent, and operating costs. Carl's calendar is completely full every day. He physically can't take on more cars, so instead of hiring, he just raises his prices. Jimmy finally brings his helper on full-time. Then he pitches a local HOA on a monthly subscription plan. 40 households sign up in the first week alone. Daniel's third dealership signs on. His empty schedule problem from month one is officially gone. Both vans are now booked back-to-back on contract work alone. He buys a third van just to keep up. Carl's still working alone, but he's not struggling anymore. He's found his ceiling and made peace with it. Jimmy's subscription base has doubled. 60 households now, all paying every single month whether they book a wash or not. Daniel signs a fourth dealership. He hasn't personally washed a car in months. Carl parks his van outside the same apartment he started in. Jimmy pulls two branded vans up to a small office he's now renting himself. Daniel walks past 3 branded vans and 3 employees clocking out for the day. Now let's look at where everyone finished after 1 year. Carl started with just $10,000, 1 van, no employees, and no recurring customers. Jimmy invested $50,000, built a team with 2 vans, and locked in 60 monthly subscription customers. Daniel started with $100,000, expanded to 3 vans, hired 3 full-time employees, and secured 4 dealerships plus a corporate fleet contract. By the end of the year, Carl generated about $50,000 in revenue. Jimmy reached $148,000, and Daniel led the pack with $318,000. But revenue isn't profit. After expenses, Carl kept $37,600. Jimmy earned $55,700. Daniel finished on top with $77,000. Now here's the twist. When we look at return on investment, everything changes. Carl turned $10,000 into $37,600, an incredible 376% ROI. Jimmy delivered a solid 111% ROI. Daniel, despite building the biggest company, finished with 77% ROI. So who actually won? Ask who took the least risk for the best return, and Carl wins. Ask who built something that could run without him, and Jimmy wins. Ask who built the biggest business, and Daniel wins. Starting with less money isn't always a disadvantage. In car detailing, low overhead means lower risk. giving you more room to grow and keep more of what you earn. Hiring too early can destroy your profits. Grow your team only when steady work can support every paycheck. Real growth comes from recurring revenue, not one-time washes. Dealership contracts, fleet accounts, and repeat customers turn a detailing job into a real business. How would you build yours? Thanks for watching,